We are going to continue from where we stopped, okay? We started looking at international languages as instruments of what? As instruments of power. Okay? So we said we have different language functions, okay? We have different language functions. That's what we said last time, okay? We have different language functions. And these language functions usually involve power relations. Power what? Power relations. That's what we said last time, okay? Power relations. So we say language is also a versatile communication medium, okay? Language is also a versatile communication medium, often and widely used in tandem with music, pictures, and actions to amplify its power. Let me repeat that, okay? Language is also a versatile communication medium, often and widely used in tandem with the music, pictures, and actions to amplify its power. So we can use language in music, okay? We can use language in pictures, okay? And sometimes you can use language in actions. That's why sometimes they say actions speak louder than words. Your concept. Actions speak louder than words. So sometimes one may just look at a picture, okay? A picture, then deduce some meanings, okay? Yeah. Just by looking at a picture, one can deduce some meanings. Or by simply listening to a piece of music, one can understand the meaning. One can get a certain sort of message. You get the concept? Yeah. So we say language is also a versatile communication medium, often and widely used in tandem with the music, pictures, and actions to amplify its power. To amplify its power. So I say the wide range of language functions and its versatility combine to make language powerful. The wide range of language functions and its versatility combine to make language powerful. Last time I told you what we mean by versatility. What does versatility mean? By versatility, we say what? What do we mean by versatility? Versatility simply means the language's communicative usefulness, okay? Versatility means the language's communicative usefulness. We said we have many languages in the world, okay? But each language has its own versatility, because languages are not the same in terms of dominance, okay? Some languages are more dominant than others, while the other languages are less dominant, okay? So when you take languages, we are going to say languages have their own versatility. Each language has its own communicative usefulness. So languages can't be the same, okay? So we say the wide range of language functions and its versatility combine to make language powerful. Make language powerful. So you say the other part is that there is pre-existing power behind language. The other part is that there is pre-existing power behind language, which it reveals and reflects, thereby transferring thereby transferring extra-linguistic power to communication contexts. The other part is that there is pre-existing power behind language, which it reveals and reflects, thereby transferring extra-linguistic power to the communication context. When we talk about extra-linguistic power, it means that we are going beyond the mere words. Get the concept? We are going beyond the mere words. Now we need to interpret what we hear depending on a certain communicative context. You get the concept? So last time I told you that a language has different functions depending on a given communicative context. So when in a church, a pastor says, you are now a man and a woman. A man and a woman. In this case, we are not simply going to take the meanings of the words man and a woman in a literal reference, okay? We are not simply going to depend on the dictionary meaning to interpret what the pastor means, okay? So in order for us to interpret what the pastor means, we need to relate what the pastor says to a certain social function, okay? In this case, we are talking about marriage. We are talking about marriage. So when a pastor says, you are now a man and a woman, this simply means what? These people are now a husband and a wife. You get the concept? So he's saying it is thus important to explain the language power relationships and their implications for human communication. It is thus important to explain the language power relationships and their implications for human communication. So you say the major theoretical foundation that has underpinned the intergroup perspective is the social identity theory. Social identity. So we have this social identity theory by Tajfer, 1982. Social identity theory. Social identity theory. So when you talk in terms of language, the social identity theory is simply a theory which centers on how people identify themselves using their language, okay? Social identity theory in terms of language simply centers on the fact that people identify themselves following a certain language, or people identify themselves depending on their language. So from this one we get social identity theory. But we also have other theories. Such as the ethno-linguistic identity theory by Howard et al. 1994. The ethno-linguistic identity theory. Ethno-linguistic identity theory by Howard et al. 1994. So what do we mean by the ethno-linguistic identity theory? The ethno-linguistic identity theory simply refers to a theory which focuses on a group of people using a certain language as their own identity. So when we talk about ethno-linguistic identity theory, we are referring to that theory which focuses on a group of people. In this case, we are talking about a speech community. So people want to identify themselves as using a certain language in their speech community. But we can also talk about another theory, which is communication accommodation theory. Communication accommodation theory by Paromeyer et al. 2016. Communication accommodation theory. Now, when we talk about communication accommodation theory, we are referring to this idea of accommodating of accommodating other people speaking other languages apart from the language we speak. How are we going to accommodate other people speaking other languages? Are we going to discriminate people because they speak other languages? Are we going to eliminate other languages? Are we going to accommodate other languages? So that's what we mean by communication accommodation theory, okay? And we also have other theories. For example, the self-categorization theory. Self-categorization theory applied to intergroup communication. So when we talk about self-categorization theory, we are simply referring to intergroup communication. Intergroup communication. Yeah. Intergroup communication. So when we talk about international languages as instruments of power, we are referring to different theories. We are not simply talking about international languages as instruments of power in a vacuum, but we are referring to other theories which have supported the idea of this communication, okay? Communication power. Communication power, yeah. Communication power. So, we can say language reflects the collective historical power of the language community that uses it. Language reflects the collective historical power of the language community that uses it. In this case, we are going to refer to English, okay? We are going to refer to English as a lingua franca. As a lingua franca. So we say, in the case of modern English, remember, English has also evolved, okay? English has also evolved. The English we have today has evolved. So the English we have today can be quite different from the English which was spoken or which was used in Britain in the 14th century, okay? So there has been an evolution in terms of English. So we say, in the case of modern English, its preeminent status as a global language and international lingua franca has shaped the communication between native and non-native English speakers because of the power of the English-speaking world that it reflects. You get a concept? I say, in the case of modern English, its preeminent status, its dominant status as a global language and international lingua franca has shaped the communication between native and non-native English speakers because of the power of the English-speaking world that it reflects, rather than because of its linguistic superiority. You get what I'm saying? So when we say English is a lingua franca, we are not simply saying it because of English's linguistic superiority. You get what I'm saying? We are not simply referring to linguistic superiority of English. So when we say English is a lingua franca, English is a universal language, English is a global language. It's a global language because of its speakers. So here we are referring to the socio-economic power of the speakers of English. We are referring to the social economic power of native speakers of English, okay? So when we talk about native speakers of English is associated with the social economic power, we are referring to the way native speakers enjoy, okay, the social economic influence, okay? The social economic influence. So here we can cite two countries where English is spoken as a native language, okay? So in this case, we are referring to Britain and the United States. So English is powerful because Britain and the United States are economically powerful. So since these countries are economically powerful, their language is also going to be powerful. So what I'm trying to say is, when we say English is dominant, we are not simply referring to its linguistic superiority, but we are referring to its social-economic dominance. Social-economic dominance. Thus, language has power of its own, okay? Language has power of its own. This power allows a language to maintain the power behind it. This power allows a language to maintain the power behind it. Unite or divide a nation. Unite or divide a nation. And they create influence. Last time I gave you an example of how a language can unite a nation, okay? I gave you an example of how a language can unite a nation. And in this case, we gave an example of Kiswahili in Tanzania. We said in Tanzania, Kiswahili can be taken as an example of a language which has so far united the nation. So different ethnic groups in Tanzania have been brought together, have been united using what? Kiswahili. We know for sure that in Tanzania we have many ethnic languages, about 120 something, okay? 120 ethnic languages. Now, although we have many ethnic groups, we have many ethnic languages, Kiswahili has managed to bring together different people speaking different languages, okay? So it has been regarded as a national what? As a national language. So in this case we can cite Kiswahili as a language which has brought unity in Tanzania. On the other hand, I gave you an example of how a language can divide a nation. How a language or languages can divide a nation. I gave you an example of French and English in Cameroon, okay? I said in Cameroon we have two official languages. We have English and we have French. So in Cameroon we have the Anglophones. We have the Anglophones, people who speak English, okay? On the other hand, we have Francophones, people who speak French. And I said the Anglophones are the minority. The Anglophones are the minority. They reside in an area which is called Ambazonia. Ambazonia. They reside in an area which is called Ambazonia. So the Francophones, those who are the majority, want to use French everywhere. You get the concept? They want to maintain their control. On the other hand, the minority, the Anglophones, also want to maintain their power. So this has resulted in two conflicts. People have killed each other because of languages. And these languages are international languages. These languages are foreign. But these languages have the power to divide Cameroon into two. So we have two parts. We have the part which is using English, and we have the part which is using French. So here you can see the power of language, dividing or uniting. Okay? For example, we are discussing the power of language, okay? For example, when negotiating with the police, when negotiating with police, a gang may issue the threatening message, which is meet our demands, meet our demands, or we will shoot the hostages. Meet our demands, or we will shoot the hostages. This is a gang, okay? A gang threatening, using language, meet our demands, or we will shoot the hostages. Now, what can we say? The threatening message may succeed. The threatening message may succeed in coercing the police to submit. Submit to what? Submit to the demands of the gang, okay? Say the threatening message may succeed in coercing, in forcing the police to submit. That is, the message merely reveals the power of a weapon, the power of a weapon in their possession. They are threatening that meet our demands or we will shoot the hostages because they have the power So their language is used hand in hand with what they have as a power. These people have weapons. They have weapons. Now, because they have weapons, the language they are using is also going to be powerful. It's also going to be powerful. So you can say, apart from revealing power, the gangsters may also cheat. The gangsters may also cheat. They've just called the police that meet our demands or we will shoot the hostages. How sure are the police that these gang members have weapons? What if they are cheating? What if they are cheating? Because sometimes they can have what you call toys. When somebody comes to you threatening you with a gun, are you sure that it's a real gun? How sure are you that this is a real gun? So sometimes you may surrender, you may succumb to their demands because you see a gun. But this gun may sometimes not be real. It may be a fake gun. It may be a fake gun. But because you see a shape of a gun, you can succumb to the demands of these gangsters. You can say, okay, take whatever you want. Take whatever you want. Take whatever you want. Because you're not fighting for your life, You're fighting for your life. So you say, as long as the message comes across, as long as the message comes across as credible and convincing enough to arouse overwhelming fear, it would allow them to get away with their demands without actually possessing any weapons. I say, as long as the message comes across as credible, as believable, and convincing enough to arouse overwhelming fear, it would allow them to get away with their demands without actually possessing any weapon. So when somebody calls you, hello, I'm with your child here. I'm giving you 2 hours to follow our demands. If you don't, we are going to kill your child after 2 hours. So when somebody says such a thing, then you get the impression that this person is not threatening without a reason. This person is threatening because he has maybe a gun, he has a weapon. Now because you are going to believe, because you want your child to survive, okay? This person may be cheating you. But because you are trusting the message you are hearing, you're going to succumb, okay? You're going to say, okay, I'm sending you the man now. In this case, this person has used language to cheat you. And you have fallen into his trap. You have fallen into his trap. You have been trapped. So you say, in this case, language is used to produce unintended effect. Despite resistance by deceptively revealing a non-existing power base and the planting in it the mind of the message recipient. The mind of the message recipient. So the message recipient is a person who is going to receive that message, okay? So the person who is going to receive that message is simply going to receive that message. He's going to receive that message. Why is he going to receive that message? He's going to receive this message because there is a sort of cheating. There's a sort of cheating. Because you don't know whether this is cheating or reality. Huh? You get what I'm saying? So we say the literature on linguistic deception, the literature on linguistic deception illustrates the widespread deceptive use of language to produce intended effects. Where was it? The literature on linguistic deception. Deception. You know what I mean? Deception. Deception. From deceive. So people have written a lot about how other people use language to deceive. You get the concept? People have written much on how other people use language to deceive. So say the literature on linguistic deception illustrates the widespread deceptive use of language to produce intended effects. For example, a book written by Robinson, 1996. Robinson, 1996, tries to center on linguistic deception. So in this book, Robinson tries to explain how people can use language to deceive, okay? How people can use language to deceive. As you're going to see later, even politicians also can use language to deceive the electorate. People who are going to vote. So a politician who is asking for votes can say, okay, if you vote for me, I'm going to do this and this. I'm going to do this and this. Maybe I'm going to build schools. I'm going to build schools. Okay? I'm going to do each and everything for your children. But when this person is on power, what he said becomes deceptive. Get the concept? So there are people who have centered it. They are writing their literature on how other people, on how some people can use language to deceive. So you say, we are now going to focus on the different areas where language can be regarded as being powerful, okay? We are going to see the different areas of language power, We're going to see the different areas, different examples, okay, of how language can be used to reflect power, okay? Can be used to reflect power. Last time I just did mention something briefly. Now we're going to see such things in detail, okay? Now the first thing is what we call ethno-linguistic vitality. Ethno-linguistic vitality. Ethno-linguistic what? Vitality. So ethno-linguistic vitality is the first thing where we can see how language reflects what? Reflects power. So language can reflect power when it comes to ethno-linguistic vitality. Ethno-linguistic vitality. What did I say last time? What did I say? How did I define ethno-linguistic vitality last time? You remember what I said about ethno-linguistic vitality? What did I say about this? What is ethno-linguistic vitality? What did I say last time? So this simply shows how a certain group of people can use their language to identify themselves, okay? To identify themselves, okay? So I can say, with the ethno-linguistic vitality, we say the language that a person uses the language that a person uses reflects the language community's power. The language that a person uses reflects the language community's power. The language community's power. So I say a useful way to think, about a language community's linguistic power is through the ethno-linguistic vitality model. Ethno-linguistic vitality model. So we have this model by Boyd et al. 1981 and Howard et al. 1994. We have what we call ethno-linguistic vitality model. Write it. Ethno-linguistic vitality model. Ethno-linguistic vitality model. So the ethno-linguistic vitality model is that model which is going to show us whether a people's language is dominant, is usive, or not. Okay? This model is going to show us whether a people's language is dominant, usive, or not. Okay? For example, when you hear a person speaking English, when you hear a person speaking English, what's the first impression you're going to get? When you hear a person speaking English, what's the first impression you're going to get? Why do you think that you're going to get this impression that this person is educated? Why? And on the other hand, why, when you hear a person speaking Sukuma, which impression are you going to get? Or when you hear a person speaking Jita or Korea, which impression are you going to get? Or when you hear a person speaking Chinese, which impression are you going to get? Okay, tell me. So, yeah. So I say ethno-linguistic vitality simply refers to a certain language is associated with a certain influence. Why do we associate this with a certain influence? We associate this with a certain influence because we are referring to the social-economic power, the social-economic dominance of the people who use this language as their native what? As their native language. You understand? So the ethno-linguistic vitality of English, for example, the ethno-linguistic vitality of English is quite high. It's quite high. It's quite high. It's quite high. It is high because of the speech community. Okay, using English as a native language. In this case, English is going to be vital. English is going to be vital. English is going to be useful. English is going to be dominant. English is going to be influential when compared to other languages. When compared to other languages, or when compared to other ethnic groups using other languages. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. So you say language communities in a country vary in absolute size overall, and just as important, a relative numeric concentration in particular regions. Let me repeat that. Language communities in a country vary in absolute size overall and just as important as a relative numeric concentration in particular regions. So when you take a country, in a country, we usually have different languages. When you take Tanzania, for example, we say we have about 120 ethnic languages, okay? Ethnic languages, 120 ethnic languages. We sometimes call them ethnic community languages, like that. Ethnic community languages, ECLS. ECLS, ethnic community languages. Okay? So we have different, I'm just trying to start with the context in Tanzania, okay? In Tanzania we have ethnic community languages, okay? Ethnic community languages. We also have Kiswahili, okay? We also have English. That's why last time I said Tanzania is triglossic. Tanzania is triglossic. This means we have 3 language clusters. So we have the first 2 languages, which are English and Kiswahili. So each language has its own role. Each language has its own social status, okay? On the other hand, we have ethnic community languages, okay? Now, in Tanzania, when we discuss English, we are going to assign certain functions to English. When we take Kiswahili, we are going to assign certain functions to Kiswahili, okay? When we take ethnic community languages, we are going to assign certain functions, okay? Now let's start with English. What's the status of English in Tanzania? What's the status of English? It's a medium of instruction, okay? It is also an official language, okay? It's a medium of instruction from which level to which level? Yeah, well, we need to be clear here when we are talking about English, okay? So when you're talking about public schools, we take English as a medium of instruction from secondary level, the university, okay? But when you're talking about private schools, okay? When you're talking about private schools, English is used as a medium of instruction from primary level, okay? From primary level. So in Tanzania, we have schools where English is used as a medium of instruction right from the primary level. And these schools fall within the private schools category. Yeah. What the other function of English, apart from being a medium of instruction? What the other function? It is also an official language. Last time I said we have areas where we can see the use, the vigorous use of what? Of English. Can you mention? In the court, for example, we say English can be used in the court, okay? Where else can we use English? In the parliament, okay? In the parliament, English can be used. English can be seen as an official language when it comes to parliamentary documents, okay? But English can also be found in hospitals, okay? Okay? Last time I said when a doctor is making a subscription, is making a subscription, okay? A prescription. When a doctor is prescribing your medication, when a doctor is prescribing, he or she is going to use English, okay? Yeah. So English, like I say, can be a language associated with different functions. Now when we come to Kiswahili, what are the functions? Yes. From primary to? In primary level. Swahili is used as a medium of what? Instruction. Now, how about ethnic community languages? Yeah. So we say language communities in a country vary. Okay? Language communities in a country vary. So when you talk about Tanzania, we have different language communities, okay? We have the community of people speaking English, okay? We have the community of people speaking Swahili. We have the community of people speaking ethnic community languages. So These language communities are going to vary depending on a given context. They are going to vary in terms of their functions, in terms of their functions. Now, moving from Tanzania, we can give examples of other countries, okay, and see how language power is going to be reflected, okay? How language power is going to be reflected. For example, when you go to Canada, when you go to, right, when you go to Canada, we have a region in Canada, okay? We have a region in Canada where French is spoken. We have a region in Canada where French is spoken. This area is known as Quebec. It's known as Quebec. So in Quebec, in Canada, French is spoken. So in Canada, we have Francophone Canadians. Francophone Canadian. Quebec. 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 Q-U-E-B-E-C. Quebec. Okay? So in Canada, we have Francophone Canadians. Francophone Canadians who reside in Quebec. These are Canadians who speak French. These are Canadians who speak French. They are just a few. They are just few. I'm just going to tell you how language can be powerful despite having few speakers. I'm going to tell you how a language can be powerful despite having few speakers. So a language can have few speakers but still be powerful. Why? Just a few speakers, but powerful. Why? It is powerful because of the economic status of the people using that language as a native language. So in Canada, we have Francophone Canadians, Canadians who speak French. These are few. These are few. On the other hand, we have Anglophone Canadians, Anglophone Canadians, Canadians who speak English. And these are many. These are many. But despite having few Francophone Canadians, French in Canada is an official language. Is an official language, as is the case with English. So in Canada, we have two official languages. We have two official and national languages, French and English. We have just a few speakers of French, but their status is valued. They are few, but they speak English and they speak French. And the French is an international word. When you refer back to the languages spoken in the United States, in the United Nations, we find that French is one of the languages spoken in the United Nations. So it is an international language. So although we have few Francophone Canadians, their language should be valued. Their language should be valued. Their language should be given an official status. So today, when you go to Canada, we have schools where French. So we say Canada is bilingual. Canada is a bilingual country. Like that. Canada is a bilingual country. So in Canada, French and English are official. French and English are both official languages. So in Canada, when you are writing an application letter, okay? When you're writing an application letter, you can use either French or English. And in Canada, there are schools where French is used as a medium of what? Instruction. And there are schools where English is used as a medium of what? Instruction. So French has not been discriminated in Canada, despite having few speakers. This is because of the power of what? The power of language. But we can also take other examples. Other examples. So we say ethnic minorities in mainland China. Okay? You can take an example of China. Ethnic minorities in mainland China have considerable power of numbers in those autonomous regions where they are concentrated. Such as Inner Mongolia, Mongolia, Tibet, and Xinjiang. Xinjiang. I'm not Chinese. Xinjiang. Now in Mongolia, in Tibet, and in Xinjiang, we have minority language communities. We have minority language communities. These minority language communities are powerful. They are powerful. They are powerful. Now we can say collectively, these language power factors form the demographic base of the language community's ethno-linguistic vitality. These language power factors, form the demographic base of the language community's ethno-linguistic vitality, an index of the community's relative linguistic dominance. What I'm trying to say is, we can have a small population. Of a certain linguistic community. But this small population can be regarded as being powerful because of the language they use. Because of the language they use, or because of the language they speak. So when deciding whether this language is official or not official, we are not simply going to base our arguments on a big population of people. I've given you an example of Canada, where we have few Francophone Canadians. But despite being few, the language they speak is given a special status, is given an official status. So we say another base of ethno-linguistic vitality is institutional representation. Of the language community in government. Another base of ethno-linguistic vitality is institutional representation of the language community in government, legislatures, education, religion, the media, and so forth. Let me explain this point, okay? Another base of ethno-linguistic vitality is institutional representation of the language community in government, legislatures, education, religion, the media, and so forth, which afford its members institutional leadership, influence, and control. These representations afford its members, this means members of a certain ethnic language, are given this particular chance of representation, representation. Now, when it comes to Tanzania, when you try to measure ethno-linguistic vitality, try to think of how the 3 language clusters are represented when it comes to language in terms of government use, okay, legislatures, education, religion, media, and so forth. For example, can we use English in religion in Tanzania?
In religion, some
Can you explain? In education, there is no way you can argue, okay? In education, you know English is going to be used, okay? What about in legislatures? For example, when you talk about government documents, when it comes to the legislature. Yeah, legislatures. So, can we use ethnic community languages in the region?
Yeah,
In some places. Can we use ethnic community languages in the media? Yeah, I'm asking you. Can we use ethnic community languages in the media?
Frequently, in the whole session.
Yeah, can we use? When you talk about the media, what do we mean here?
Newspaper, television, radio.
So, yeah. So can we see ethnic community languages in the media?
No.
Try to think. When you talk about the media, we refer to Now I'm asking you another question. Can we have ethnic community languages represented in the media? Ethnic community languages represented in the media? If that's possible, to which extent? To which extent? Now let me ask you a question, okay? When you talk about the media, we are referring to the radio, okay? What? Newspapers, television, okay? Now, do you think ethnic community languages are simply not represented in the media? Are they not represented at all in the media?
They are represented.
How are they represented? Do we have any chances where we can have a representation of ethnic community languages in the media? And if yes, to which extent?
Maybe you may find, for example, radios. We have radios that maybe that are formed in the market, for example. We have the radio theater, RFA. Sometimes you may find maybe before the session begins, maybe you can find those radio presenters are greeting you, but not the whole session. I have heard in radio theater.
Do we have any adverts? You know what I mean by adverts? Publicities? Do we have any adverts where ethnic languages are used in Tanzania? Now we are talking about business. Because business, look, business and the media go together, okay? Business and the media can go together. Now, what I'm asking is, do we have any representation of the ethnic community languages in the media when it comes to business? For example, when you talk about publicity, adverts. For example, do we have any Vodacom adverts where we have a representation of ethnic community languages? Try to think, think, discuss, and give me examples. No, talk about Vodacom. Talk about business companies. Do business companies use ethnic community languages in their adverts? Other examples where ethnic community languages are used in the media, especially when it comes to business adverts. For example, don't we have adverts in which the Maasai are using their language? Yeah. Don't we have banners where we have ethnic community languages used? Don't we have banners? Business banners?
Written in community.
Yeah, for example, a business banner where we find the Kimasai and English and Swahili maybe. Expressions like yellow, subai. Don't you have such things? Right, that one, you're going to research. Now, like this question, with the vivid examples from Tanzania. Explain how ethnic community languages can be used in the media when it comes to business adventures. Okay, now you're going to focus on different things, okay? For example, you're going to look for contexts where ethnic community languages have been used when it comes to business, okay? By different business companies, okay? For example, these communication companies like Vodacom, Airtel, or what else? Zantel, Tico. Do they sometimes use ethnic community languages in a given communication context? Okay? You can talk about other campaigns, social campaigns. For example, a campaign like Nyumbani Show. Nyumbani? Do you think we have instances where ethnic community languages have been used when, for example, sensitizing, when, for example, raising awareness? Okay? Can get a lot of data. And we can even write a paper on that. So there you're going to find data on the vitality of ethnic community languages. everything. What I need are examples. You can say, okay, we saw this advert somewhere where there is Masai. We saw this advert somewhere where there is Kia. We saw this advert by Vodacom. Where we saw, okay?
So we do pictures.
Yeah. Even pictures, yeah.
Is media fall under, for example,
Media.
yes,
What do you mean by media?
television,
Yeah, sometimes we have adverts on television.
do they fall in communication?
Why are you asking?
It's not.
What is communication?
For example, a name written in a certain a name radio is
Mhm.
written in a certain ethnic language. Right?
Yes, yes, yes. Now, what I'm trying to say,
Yes.
do you know how our paper can be? Do you know what can be the title of our paper? The title of our paper can be analyzing the use ethnic community languages in Tanzania in mass media. In mass media. When you talk about mass media, include everything: television, radio, newspapers, okay? Mass media.
So we exclude the bangles.
No.
It is.
When you say mass media, even the bangles,
Oh, okay.
are part and parcel of the mass media.
Oh, okay. People get information from that.
Yes. How do you find that? I mean, it's a good assignment, huh? It's a good assignment. Try to look for campaigns about farmers. We have different campaigns about farmers, about agriculture. I'm sure that you are going to find. Yeah. 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 Can we have that use of ethnic community languages? What I'm trying to make you do, okay, is to make sure that you find out if at all ethnic community languages have a place in the media. Even if they are not so much used, but do they have a place in the media? At least, yeah, do they have a place in the media?
Music.
In music, for example? Yes. Do they have a place in the music, for example? Yeah. Yeah. Hmm? Okay. What?
This is one among us who was silent.
I know, it's just a. You want to make it as an individual assignment? That can't be individual. That can be a group assignment. Okay? Can you do that as a group assignment? Okay. Now I'm giving you that as a group assignment. Number 1. Group assignment 1. So with the group assignment, you can do it together, okay?
Yeah.
So you're going to discuss, then you write something about what you've found. With vivid examples, you can even bring pictures and so forth. What I need are vivid. You can even transcribe songs and so forth. Okay? Let's proceed. Okay, so we say in short, the dominant language of a nation, the dominant language of a nation is one that comes from and reflects the high ethno-linguistic vitality of its language community. In short, the dominant language of a nation is one that comes from and reflects the high ethno-linguistic vitality of its language community, community. Now, take English, take Kiswahili in Tanzania. Do you think Kiswahili has a high ethno-linguistic vitality? Kiswahili? Yes, because Kiswahili has many speakers in Tanzania when you compare to ethno-linguistic communities. Okay? Yeah. Now, when you talk about English, does English have a high ethno-linguistic vitality? The answer is yes. Even in Tanzania. What do you want to say about English? No, even if English has few speakers in Tanzania, but its ethno-linguistic vitality is what? Is high. Yes. Yeah, what's it? Now, when you are discussing the language ethno-linguistic vitality, we are not simply talking about English in Tanzania. We go beyond Tanzania, because we are also going to discuss English in terms of a world what? A world language? It's a global language, a universal language, a lingua franca. Yeah, we go beyond Tanzania. Okay? Okay? So we say Philipson. This dominance we have been talking about, this dominance, this ethno-linguistic vitality is what Philipson calls linguistic imperialism. That's what Philipson calls. Because when you talk about linguistic imperialism, it means that a certain language is going to dominate. It's going to dominate. And we have the reasons why this language is dominating, okay? We have the reasons why this language is dominating. So linguistic imperialism is just like ethno-linguistic vitality. Because with ethno-linguistic vitality, we're also going to discuss the dominance of a certain language in a given context, yeah. So there's no way you can separate linguistic imperialism and ethno-linguistic vitality. The two go together. Okay? So you say research on linguistic sexism has shown for example, research on linguistic sexism. I'm going to see examples here. Research on linguistic sexism has shown, for example, a man-made language such as English. A man-made language such as English is full of sexist words. Is full of sexist words and the grammatical rules. It is full of sexist words and the grammatical rules that reflect historical male dominance in society. So here we are talking about ethno-linguistic vitality in terms of sex. In terms of what? in terms of sex. We are looking at a language's dominance in terms of what? In terms of sex. So we say a language like English has sexist weights and the grammatical rules that reflect historical male dominance in society. So last time I said in English, for example, just a simple example. We say, this is an actor. This is an, when we are talking about a man, okay? But when we are talking about a woman, we say, an actress. An actress. Huh? And we said last time we can go beyond mere words. We can go beyond mere words. We can also include people's expressions and perceptions towards a certain sex. Towards a certain sex. So somebody can be heard saying, okay, you want to be a nurse. Why do you want to be a nurse? Are you a woman? Are you a woman? Why do you want to be a nurse? Why don't you want to be why don't you want to be a doctor? Why don't you want to be an engineer? Why don't you want to be a pilot? So there are certain people with certain perceptions, misconceptions, that certain jobs are related to a certain sex. You understand? So sexist language can go beyond mere words like actress, actor. This can also include people's perceptions, misconceptions about a certain sex. Okay? I also gave you an example of how this can work in French. Because French is also an example of a sexist language. An example of a sexist language. In French, we have this notion of masculine and a feminine gender. Masculine and a feminine gender. Okay? So we say, for example, we say professional languages. Professional languages are made by, and for particular professions, are made by and for particular professions, such as the legal profession. Let's see examples here. So we say the legal language tries to discriminate. The legal language tries to discriminate those who are not lawyers, those who are not advocates. Those who are not advocates, those who are not lawyers are discriminated. Those who are not advocates, those who are not lawyers are discriminated. We say the legal language is used not only among members of the profession, but also within the general public. Who may know each and every word in a legal document, but are still unable to decipher its meaning. If I presented you today with a legal document, you cannot get the meaning of this document if you are not a lawyer. The words written there are English words. Okay? The words written there are English words. But you cannot decipher the meaning of such words because you are not a lawyer. You are not a lawyer. No, the mere fact that you cannot understand the language written in a legal document is a sort of what? Discrimination. Even for doctors, okay? Let's talk about a doctor's prescription. I know English, okay? I know English. But when I go to hospital, when a doctor prescribes my medication, I can't understand what a doctor has written because that's not my language. In this case, this medical language is discriminating me, is it? So sometimes only doctors can communicate and understand each other because the language they are using is within their domain, is within their domain. Which domain? Medicine. Medical domain. For example, when a doctor says, this person has ELISA, do you understand? ELISA, light, E-L-I-S-A. This person has ELISA. Do you understand what we mean by ELISA? ELISA, in a medical language, is HIV/AIDS. So what I'm trying to say, here we are just giving an example of legal language. But we have other domains where a person is likely to be discriminated linguistically. Linguistically. Because a person cannot decipher. To decipher simply means to create a meaning out of such something. To decipher. Okay? So communication between lawyers and their clients. So communication between lawyers and their clients. Communication between lawyers and their clients is not only problematic, but the public's continued dependence on the legal language contributes to the maintenance of the dominance of the profession. You get a concept? Here we are talking about how a language can maintain existing what? Existing dominance, okay? We are talking about how a language can maintain existing what? Dominance. Now here we are referring to the language of law, okay? The legal language. So say the legal language has maintained its dominance up to now. From time immemorial. So the legal language is dominant even today. The legal language is dominant. And its dominance can be discussed in the way it discriminates other people who are not lawyers. Other people who are laymen. Laymen. So if you are a layman, there's no way you can understand legal language. If you are a layman, this means you don't know what is meant by certain expressions in legal language. Okay? So we are trying to see how a certain language or a certain variety of language can continue to maintain dominance. And here we are giving an example of legal what? Legal language. Legal language. So we can say a language can unite and a language can divide a nation, okay? A language can unite and a language can divide a nation. So we can say a nation of many people who, despite their diverse cultural and ethnic background, a nation of many people who, despite their diverse cultural and ethnic background, all speak in the same tongue. All speak in the same tongue and write in the same script. Would reap the benefit of the unifying power of a common what? Of a common language. What I'm trying to say is, if you are found in a certain nation where you use one language, where you use one language, or where you have one language in common, where you have one language in common, you have one language in common because you speak in the same tongue. You speak in the same tongue. And write in the same script. In this case, you can get what you call the benefit. The benefit of a unifying power. Because this language you share is going to unite you. So in Tanzania, I don't have any problems when I come across a person coming from Iringa, okay? I don't have any problem when I come across a person coming from Iringa. A person who doesn't know my mother tongue, okay? I also don't know the mother tongue of this person. But see, because we have Kiswahili as a nation bringing us together, we are not going to face what we call a communication barrier. So there won't be any communication barrier because we are going to understand each other. We are going to understand each other because we have a language we share. And this language is Kiswahili. So we won't have any communication barrier. We won't have any communication barrier. Okay? So he's saying, who's that? Somebody peeping. So he's saying, the power of the language, the language to unite people, would be stronger if it has become part of their common national identity and contributed to its vitality and psychological distinctiveness. Let me explain. The power of the language to unite people would be stronger if it has become part of their common national identity and they contributed to its vitality and the psychological distinctiveness. Distinctiveness. Now, I can ask you a question. Do you think Kiswahili can show our national identity? If yes, how? Now, as you're going to see later, okay, when it comes to what we call Englishes, or when we come to language dialects, okay, language dialects can enable us identify a certain person's accent, okay. Language dialects can enable us to identify somebody's accent in a certain language. So when it comes to Englishes, as we're going to see later, is a term used to show the different dialects of English. We know for sure that the English has evolved, okay? English has evolved. We no longer talk about one English. English has evolved. So far we have different types of English. Hence the notion of Englishes. And these Englishes, as we're going to see later, can be easily identifiable. Depending on the different grammatical aspects. Okay? For example, people can be identified in terms of how they pronounce their English words, okay? People can be identified on how they use their vocabulary. Okay? For example, when you hear somebody saying, we didn't have any elevator. There was no any elevator in that building. There was no any elevator in that building. There was no any elevator in that building. How are you going to identify this person? We're going to identify this person as American because of the word elevator. Okay? Okay? This is bearer. This is bearer. This is bearer. Because we know in British English, we don't say bearer. In British English, we say better. But in American English, we say bearer. As we're going to see later, American English is characterized by what we call intervocalic voicing. Intervocalic voicing. So an American is not going to say setting. The setting of this book. No. An American is going to say the selling of this book is in Kenya. The selling of this book. See? So what I'm trying to say is people can be identified in terms of language. In this case, a language can be a national identity. Can be a national identity. For example, in Nigeria, English is spoken. English is spoken. But when you come across a Nigerian, or when you come across any person coming from West Africa, okay? We're talking about Western African countries in West Africa, okay, where Britain colonized, okay? They're talking about Nigeria, okay? They're talking about Ghana, okay? They have their own distinctive dialect, okay? They have their own distinctive dialect. So you can see you can hear them saying, okay, my mother wanted me to stay home. My mother. Now, we are going to ask ourselves, do we have any Tanzanian English as a variety, as a dialect? Do we have any Kenyan English variety? Do we have any Ugandan English variety? We are going to see that when you come to Englishes. When you come to Englishes. But what I'm trying to say here is a language can act as a national identity. As a national identity. For example, when you talk about Kiswahili, we know Kiswahili is spoken in Tanzania, okay? But the Kiswahili spoken in Tanzania is quite different from the Kiswahili spoken in Congo, in DRC. In DRC. So a person from DRC can be identified when he or she speaks Swahili. Because the Swahili spoken in DRC is quite different from the Swahili we know. So in DRC, somebody can say, hey, hii ni kitu kimoya. Hiki ni kitu kimoya. Instead of saying kimoja, kimoya. Maybe this person has been affected by Lingala or other languages in Congo. We were certainly TV presenter, correspondent from Congo. I think he works for ITV. Somebody, Kamalizi, I can't remember his name. But the way he reports in Swahili, but you know that this Swahili is not the Swahili we know. It is Congolese Swahili. It's Congolese Swahili. While English has different dialects, has different varieties, Kiswahili also has different varieties. Huh? And in Kenya, they have their own way of speaking. For example, the expression in Mwenda Zake. The expression Mwenda Zake was not so much used in Tanzania. It was used in Kenya, okay? But recently, Mwenda Zake is also used in Tanzania. Mwenda Zake meaning what? The deceased, eh? Mwendasaki. The late. For example, in China, Emperor Qin Shi Huang, Emperor Qin Shi Huang, Qin Shi Huang. It is Q Qin Shi Huang. Write this: Q I N S H I H U A N G. Have you written that? This was a Chinese emperor. We are trying to see how a language can be powerful. All this is about language power. Language what? Language power. Now in China, I'm giving you another example of how a language can be made powerful. Of how a language can be made powerful, or of how a language can influence its choice. Okay, its choice or its status. In China, for example, Emperor Qin Shi Huang standardized the Chinese script hands. The Chinese script hands. Chinese script hands. As unimportant, when you talk about the script, the way a language is written, hands, Hanzi, hands. HA, okay? So say in China, for example, Emperor Qin Shi Huang standardized the Chinese script hands, okay? As an important part of the reforms to unify the country, after he had defeated the other states, and they brought the warring states period, and they brought the warring states period to an end. This was 475 to 221 BC. In 475 to 221 BC. Now, why do you think the emperor made some changes to the writing of this Chinese dialect, Hanzi? He made changes because he found that many people were using this script. Now, in order to accommodate these people, there was a need to standardize. There was a need to standardize this language. You know what I mean by language standardization? What is language standardization? What do you mean by language standardization? To standardize simply means to bring some standards, okay, to a certain language, okay. For example, in Tanzania, we have an organism. Which is entitled to standardize Kiswahili. What is it? Is it Bakita? It is Bakita, eh?
Yeah,
Not Tuk, it is Bakita. Now, Bakita can standardize Kiswahili. Can standardize? Yeah, can bring some standards. For example, when Bakita says, from now on, we are going to use this word in Kiswahili to mean this. Okay? So, as you're going to see later, the whole process of standardization is a long process, okay? It's a long process. For example, this can include neologisms. Neologism. This can include the creation of new terms. So, in most cases, in each country, we have a special organism. We have special organ, which makes sure that a language is standard. The language is standard. When you talk about Tanzania, we have Bakita. When you go to France, we have l'Académie Française. We have l'Académie, the French Academy. The French Academy also takes all the responsibility of standardizing French. Standardizing. So when you talk about standardization, we have a long process. So we can include things like our processes like neologism, a coinage of new terms. For example, how do we call computer in Swahili? How do you call television in Kiswahili? All those are sorts of neology which have been incorporated in Swahili, in standard Swahili. For example, when you say, we don't say naenda kwenye maonyesho, but I say naenda kwenye maonesho. Who says it is maonesho and not maonyesho? It is Bakita. That was it. Now, Emperor Qin Shi Huang decided to standardize this dialect of Chinese, this dialect of Chinese, because he wanted to accommodate those people who were speaking this particular dialect. Okay, so this shows how a certain group of people can be strong when it comes to language policies and language planning. That was it. A similar form of language, another example. A similar form of language standardization was set in motion soon after the overthrow of the Qing dynasty in Chinese, okay? AD 1644 to 1911. By simplifying some of the hands and promoting Putongwa and promoting Putongwa, another dialect of Chinese, Putongwa, as the national standard oral language. Now, can you tell me what I'm trying to say here? Can you tell me what I'm trying to say here about language power? Can you tell me what I'm trying to say about language power? Because when you talk about the standardization of a language, not any variety can be standardized. Okay? Not any variety can be standardized. We are simply going to standardize that variety which is regarded as being standard. For example, when you talk about Kiswahili, we have the Kiunguja variety, Kiunguja dialect. But when it comes to formal usage, we are not going to use the Kiunguja dialect. We are going to use the standard Kiswahili dialect. Accepted by who? Accepted by Bakita. Like I say, even when we talk about Kiswahili has also varieties. Sometimes the Kiswahili spoken in Zanzibar can be different from the Kiswahili spoken in Tanzania mainland. Mainland. I have been to Zanzibar. Okay? We were writing books in Zanzibar. They warned us before we started writing books. They said, before you write any text in Swahili, let's say text in a book, you have to make sure that you consult people from Zanzibar. Because the Swahili you use in Tanzania mainland can be slightly different from the Swahili we use in Zanzibar. They just gave us some words as examples, okay? They said in Zanzibar, when you want to fetch water, when you want to draw water from a water tap, okay? From a water tap, you don't say naenda kuchota maji bombani. In Zanzibar, they don't say that. They don't say bombani. They say mferejini. Okay? Naenda mferejini. Yeah. In Zanzibar, for example, they don't say tembo to mean elephant. Huh? In Zanzibar, they say ndovu to mean tembo. Because tembo can have another meaning in Zanzibar. I don't know. I don't know. But when you are in Zanzibar, when you say tembo, tembo has another connotation. You see that? You see what I mean? So when it comes to English, we're also going to see how English varies. We're going to see how English varies. Because we have different varieties, we have different dialects of English. Okay? So standardization is going to be done. Not anyhow. Normally, those who are responsible for standardizing a language are going to standardize a language because of certain reasons. Because of certain reasons. They are not going to standardize anyhow. So choosing a certain language as a standard can depend on the people who speak that variety. That's why even when you are in the United States, we have standard American English, and we have Black English vernacular. Now, when you are in school, your variety is going to be censored. Your dialect is going to be censored because it is not standard. So when you are in the United States and you come from an area where Black English vernacular is spoken, okay? Let's say you are Afro-American. When you are in an educational environment, you are not going to write your essay using Black English vernacular. As we're going to see later, we know that Black English vernacular, for example, accepts what we call double negation. Double negation. So an Afro-American can say, I don't know nothing. I don't know nothing. I don't know nothing. I don't have nothing. I don't know nothing. They have double negation. But when it comes to standard American English, double negations are discouraged. Double negations are not accepted. Now, when you are in school, your professor has asked you to write an essay on democracy, When you start writing your essay, you have to make sure that you abide by standard American English in your writings. If you write using Black English vernacular, which is censored, which is not accepted, then you are going to get low marks. Here we simply need standard American English. Can you understand? You're going to see later. That's the power. That's the power of language. So when we talk about the power of language, we can also choose among many dialects of a language. English has many dialects. But which one is accorded power? You have Nigerian English, Indian English, Bangladesh English, and so forth. But which one is accorded this dominance? So when we talk about English dominance, we are simply going to sort out two language varieties, two language dialects in English. We either subscribe to British English or American English, which is standard. Okay?
So American English is accepted.
Yeah, which is standard American English is accepted, but not Black English vernacular. Yeah, that's accepted, okay? That's accepted. It, standard American English is accepted in certain contexts. It is standard, okay? But when you, it depends on the context. When your professor subscribes to British Standard English, then you write American Standard English, your essay is not going to be accepted. Huh? Huh? Even when it comes to writing on your computer, we have Standard British English and Standard American English. So you can make your choice, okay? Now, where are you sending your document? Is your document going to be read by people who like British Standard English or American Standard English? Now you choose. Huh? Are you going to write color in American spelling? Or are you going to write color in British spelling? Now you decide. You? Yeah, okay, I'm exhausted. Let's end here, okay? We have 9 minutes, let's end here, okay?